Basically, these are just we will be reminding ourselves of what we already know and what we are experiencing at we'll talk about policies and related practice, something that is quite familiar to all of us, especially related to the CBC and the assessment part of it. But before that, we need to have a recap. Rukia will take us to the slide the next slide, Rukia. Are we there, Rukia? Okay. So, in our last presentation, we talked about summative and formative assessment. And to have an exciting quote here, just to help us recap on formative. When the cook tastes the soup, that is formative. But when taste the soup, that is summative. I believe, ladies, we understand this, that the cook tastes the soup so that they improve preparing. But the guest is the final recipient soup. So that one, this quote summarizes formative and summative for us. Most of us, basically, what we do is we are cooks at school. We keep improving learners and keep giving them so that at the end of the day, when guests learners, they meet a complete product. Next slide, we can type some of the formative that we're using in our own setups. You can just remind ourselves some of the assessment, what you frequently use with your students as a good cook. What do you use? As so, Jen, the charts, what our teachers use as formative assessment and what they use as summative in their own schools. You can just typing in the box as we move on. I believe. Jen, anything in the chat box you read for us?
Yes, Tiberius. We have Ala, who says formative uses quizzes. She uses quizzes, and summative, she uses final exams. Then we have Arthur Tieno, who says formative.
Lovely.
Skill by skill assessment, topical assessments, and cuts. Yes.
Good.
We have Frederick, who says continuous assessment tests.
That's nice. In our, I believe most teachers are marking end term now, or they have already marked at the end of the term. We have a name for that. At the end of the term, is it formative or summative? Somebody? Okay. Then there are so many.
Yeah. Someone says end of term is summative. In fact, most people are saying end of term is summative, or not most people, sorry. We have Arthur We have Stephen who's saying end of term is summative. Then we have Nuru, who has answered formative. She uses quizzes, written exercises, and presentation. Summative, end of term exam. Then we have Mariam, who says formative, assessment, use evaluations during a class. Then we have Dutia. At the end, it's summative. Okay. Constance says
Wow.
summative. Yeah, so most are saying summative, yeah.
Thank you so much for that feedback. I think we have good understanding of formative and summative. As to recap for us, from this picture, what you can see here, can someone tell us what type of assessment is this? Do you think in your understanding, this is summative or this is formative? You can just type in the chat from what you're seeing. Is this meant to improve the learner or this is a final product? I can see Gabriel says formative. Mohammed says formative. Says formative. Mercy, formative. There. Cynthia Ann, formative. Wow. So we agree, all of us, that this is a cook in the kitchen trying to improve the soup and correcting what may not be okay. Good. So let us understand something about policy before we delve further on assessment. We all know that public policy can simply be described as the broad area of government laws, regulations, court decisions, and local ordinances. For education policies, these are laws that govern the operation of an education system. All of us know the policies. Maybe education has so many policies the ministry has put in place that guide, especially in this our presentation, the policies on the implementation of CBC in the country. And these policies, in the next slide, have been drawn from Rukia. The next slide. These policies are drawn from is Rukia there? The next, yes, from the Basic Education Act 2023, the Basic Education Curriculum Framework, which we all know is the heart of CBC, the National Curriculum Policy 2018, the sessional paper number 1 of 2019 on reforming education for training and sustainable development in Kenya. All these are key documents and policy documents that have built or have influenced the coming up of the CBC curriculum. Now, I want us in the chat box to be very honest with each other. Most of us, we have not started dealing with the learners at CBC level, but just share a statement or two. What are your biggest fears when it comes to CBC curriculum? Okay, someone is asking what is CBC? CBC means competence-based curriculum. We are going to learn more of it as we present, so don't worry. What's your biggest fear? Just type your biggest fear about this CBC thing that you still feel, because it was something that was born out of the education policies. Jen will be monitoring.
Yes, we have Robert who says that little resources have been allocated for the success of that little resources have been allocated for the success of the system. Then we have Stephen who says sorry, allow me to keep. So Stephen says the information gap, I don't know much about it. We have Arthur who says fear, our preparedness. Then we have Nuru, numerous assessment. We have Damaris who says the huge burden that comes with acquiring the materials and resources, especially for less privileged. And then we have Davis, who says resources transition in grades. Then we have Constance, it's the sustainability. And other says the human resource meant to teach the CBC is itself not ready. Then we say Mariam, who says lack of resources. Irene says, for me, it's policy, because I feel curriculum developers did a shoddy work and it's already implemented, yet resources are nowhere to be found. Cynthia says, if it be fully embraced. Then Robert adds that the teachers have not been prepared enough for the curriculum. No seminars or workshops have been rolled out by TSC. And you also have Justin, who says, new materials to be implemented each year, students and teachers reluctancy to changes. So yeah, those are some of the feedback.
Yes.
Yeah.
Other says the seminars are merely jamboree. Okay, fine. I know all those concerns are there, but the change sometimes comes with these things. What we need to understand, for those who are not Kenyans, is that the Kenyan system is shifting from 844. Okay, Damari says the trainers meant to train teachers supposed to be are blank as the teachers. It is try and error. Okay. Why CBC? For our participants who are not Kenyan, 844, which meant 8 years in primary, 4 years secondary, 4 years in college, shifted to CBC, which simply means 2 years in the early years, 2, 3. Somebody to type in the chat, CBC has how many years? 2 years at the at PP1, PP2, then lower primary 3 years, then upper primary 3 years, then junior secondary 3 years, there is senior secondary. 3. Dr. says 3, 3, 3, 3. Then it says 2, 6, 6, 3. Okay. Jen, can you explain that?
So we have 2 years in pre-primary school, then we have 6 years in junior high school, then 6 years in it was supposed to be senior high school, and then 3 years in the university. Yeah.
Okay. But basically, for our presentation, we need to understand that the focus of CBC is it moves from just teaching to practical learning, and then it also moves from memorization to application of knowledge, then from academic achievement to actually skills development and nurturing values, from examination, which we are all used to what the learner is expected to achieve, and feedback, from competition to collaboration, from not all learners transit in 844, we know that, but this one is smooth transition. Then there is less emphasis on talent in our 844, which is exiting, to now emphasis on talent identification and career development. Then 844 parents were so detached, but for this one, we have parental engagement. Let's go to the next. Damaris is worried. Okay. So, basic curriculum, CBC is competence-based. Gen type for us, competence-based curriculum, so that our friend from Senegal, is it Senegal or Egypt, can move with us. The 2016 basic education curriculum insists or emphasizes on the importance of assessment, both as a tool of learning and as a means of establishing the extent of the outcome. So CBC is practical. Let us put it simple. And the policy requirement under CBC is to standardize assessment of core learning outcomes, transferable skills, and subject-related knowledge, so that the outcomes, the skills, and the subject-related knowledge, the assessment is standardized. And I want to ask us a question. Most of us are still in the 844 system. We have this issue of teacher bias in assessing learners, and I know it affects most of us. We already know, some students know even before they sit exams or they do something. We already conclude that this one knows, and there are those ones we already concluded they don't know anything. How do you deal with this one in assessment? Just share your experience before we move. How do you deal with biasness in your class when you are marking or assessing your learners, even before you meet the CBC group that is soon coming to your level? Is there anything, Jen?
There's quite a lot of having that conversation of the number of years in CBC, but we have Robert, who has just shared a picture of what CBC is about. Yeah.
Good. I think teacher bias.
Hello.
Yes, Robert.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Now, my contribution on the topic, basically, this is what we call the halo effect, yeah?
Yes.
Basically, it builds up as one gets to interact with a particular material of a particular student. It's basically a cognitive bias where a general impression of somebody is or a student is imprinted on a teacher, so that even before you get to mark their work or assess the specific instructions you are given and look at how they have performed, you already are attaching some form of performance before actually assessing the work. Now, even well-behaved students, you could rate them favorably above that particular student who does not behave so well, but then you did not look into the quality of work of each student that was given to you. This can be mitigated by, let's say, having a rotational kind of assessment within the school that you're working with. You could call in your colleague to try and check up on the work that you have been given or has been submitted. Sometimes you can also do the same with your colleague, go over and look at the work, mark with them, and, get a particular picture that is rightful for each particular student. This sometimes, if not mitigated, could come back on the teacher by the virtue of external assessment now. That summative assessment that maybe might not be standardized by you yourself, but will go out there and be marked by someone else. You'll come and find that that particular student that you'd been giving a fair assessment or above the rest does not really perform that well. So by you balancing with the different teams that you have within the school, you can you'll be able to arrest this before it gets out of hand. That's my input for today.
Thank you so much, Robert. I'm sure some of you have experienced this thing where your students performed well in the internal assessments, but when it comes to national assessment, the feedback is completely skewed. The learner you expected to perform maybe did not perform. There are so many suggestions dealing with, someone is asking whether it is teacher bias or student bias. It's a question of English here. Teachers can be biased towards the learner. We moderate the marking scheme. Others says that tracefory marking in a team, good. No single examiner marks the whole script. We use CBS conveyor belt system. Very good. I think this is nice. The conveyor belt system, where at least a learner is marked by so many teachers and they give favorable assessment. There's a quote here. I'll ask the question. A few of you will answer for the entire class, and we will all pretend this is the same thing as learning. That is our situation. We all know that once one student has understood, the conclusion is the whole class has understood. That is a sorry state. So let us move to why do you assess? We can move to the next slide, Rukia. The purpose of assessment, the aim, according to the BECF, which is Basic Education Curriculum Framework, the aim of assessment is to establish the extent to which the learner has acquired the expected competencies with a view of informing interventions and acquisition and mastery of expected competencies. All of us know under CBC, we talk about the competencies, which we shall be seeing. So assessment helps to diagnose and monitor the progress of a learner and provide feedback to the learners, parents, teachers, and curriculum designers and implementers. The next slide, Rukia. So this helps to plan in terms of what the learner needs so that to continue advancing and fill gaps in understanding performance. It also provides guidance on the selection of future subjects, certification, and promotion to the next progression level. So in every curriculum implementation, assessment is expected to assess the extent which learning objectives have been achieved. So the assessment here provides a basis for advising teachers on pedagogical methods and deliberate interventions. So here, a quick one here. I know most of us are not teaching CBC, but we have young ones in the house. So can you share with us some of the tasks you have had to assist your CBC learner at home? And which competence did you observe in the learner? We have all of them in the house. We are guardians, we are uncles, we are nieces, we are parents. Just share your experience of some of the tasks that a learner was given and you monitored or you assisted at home so that we bring it closer home. Any task that you helped with, share in the chat box. Personally, I have a girl. Robert says we painted the Kenyan flag recently. Okay, that is interesting. Who else can share their own personal experience with this CBC in their houses? Or even in school if you are in the system. Mosaic, Nuru Said to everyone. Mosaic, wonderful. Creating Mosaic. Maybe Amkoe, can you share how was it? Amkoe. Daughter made a size of skirt. Okay. That's lovely. Doing scarecrow. Constance, we made a necklace. Heading our community history in mother tongue. Keflin, that one must have been a very Orutu. Masi Akeyo did a music instrument. Orutu. Peace messages. Irene Cardo. That's nice. Lovely. Most of us have actually been part of the competition. Kindly mute. Esa Mukoye. Okay. You have muted. So, from what I'm observing, CBC is with us in our houses already. And we are already in it, even as we wait for learners or we are encountering learners. So when it comes to CBA now, CBA means competency-based assessment. It can be described as determining the capability to apply the set of related knowledge, skills, and abilities to successfully perform some work functions or tasks in a defined setting. So competency-based assessment is a process where the learner is given an opportunity to practice what they have learned, which we have already observed in the chat box. It's a collection of evidence demonstrating how a learner can perform or behave according to a specific standard. So the learner is provided with a challenge, and then it's allowed to show how to solve the problem. So assessment is as they do the task. Assess the learners as they use their knowledge. It aims at providing a way of building the skills and knowledge that the learners require to perform identified tasks. After going through, okay, Kobia has something here. He was given extended activity to prepare deep fried food. Wow. Some of us have already put there the competencies that they observed from the learners. I would love to see which competency. There are 7 competencies. We all know them. I've seen self-efficacy there. I've seen collaboration. I've seen digital literacy. So there are basic competencies that we also observe when we are helping these learners do this. Next slide, Rukia. So the competencies, Kamugisha has something. This is one among the areas which leads to a lot of chaos to learners when it comes to. Jane, read that. What Kamugisha is saying.
So he's saying this is one among the areas which results to a lot of chaos to learners when it comes to displaying the exam's results. Some teachers do display the results and stay connected to whoever comes for wrong marking cases. We often use conveyor belt marking system, even though sometimes, sorry,
Are you there, Jen?
I lost it. Yeah, we often, sorry, I kind of lost it. So, we often use conveyor belt marking system, even though sometimes it's not effective enough due to ineffective seriousness of markers, inappropriate ratio between teachers and learners. Then you have Catherine who says, describing story, writing steps from a story given a place structure too.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback. So the center of focus in competency-based assessment is that it is based on actual skills and knowledge that a person can practically demonstrate. So the process starts with a personal assessment against a set of competencies. So you must first of all decide which outcome. And the competencies which we know, we have communication and collaboration. Can the learner, when you watch the learner do the mosaic or the size was cut, can the learner communicate? Is there collaboration? Can the learner work with the others? Is there critical thinking and problem solving, imagination and creativity, citizenship, digital literacy, learning to learn, self-efficacy? All this, Kobia says we have also values. We'll appreciate those values if you help us in the chat box. Kobia, please just type the values so that we all learn today. So the assessment is, we have classroom assessment, we have school-based assessment, and we have summative assessment. Classroom assessment, they are developed by the teacher and the exams are done at the classroom level, not national. We have school-based, it's done by students from around grade 4 to 12. Then we have summative, which is like KCPE. At grade 3, there is school-based assessment normally, which is national but not used for placement. There's no placement. At grade 6, there is summative assessment, which is national and actually used for placement. At grade 9, there is summative assessment also, which is national and also used for placement. And then at grade 12, there is summative assessment too, that is used, is national and also used for placement. Placement here means it decides on the next level of the learner. We are all familiar with this one. All of us have seen this before. I know various schools, they vary them, but this is just the basic standard, exceeding, meeting, and all that. Let's have this quote. The worst scenario is one in which some pupils who get low marks this time also got low marks last time and come expecting to get low marks next time. This cycle of repeated failure becomes part of a shared belief between students and their teachers. We are all in these scenarios. We have students who know in the last exam they got low marks. In the current one, they are getting low marks. And even in the next one, you are aware they are going to get low marks. This cycle, according to Black and William, says becomes part of a shared belief between students and their teacher. I'm glad this is going to go with 844, where we look at other things apart from just the written and the exam-based approach. So a bad curriculum, well taught, is better experience for them than a good curriculum, badly taught. Those are quotes for us to ponder over as teachers. Yes, Rukia, good. So in the chat box, I want us to just quickly, I want us to share what type of students do you have? What type of students do you have? I know there's the Gen Z thing, but now focusing on your learner, what type of students do you have? Are they like you? Are they like you when you are in school, or you are meeting a whole lot of different students? Just type in the chat box the type of learners that you deal with so that we understand better. Amukoy says those spots are spanned. Okay. Let us share the kind of students, characteristics of the learners we have. Any adjective you can use to describe the learner that you are dealing with currently. Good. Alogo says thinking, sharing, and discussing. Informed. Damari says they're informed, they're digital. Good. Very outspoken and digital babies. Sylvia Ann says they are assertive. They know what they believe. Constance says some are very confident. I agree with you. Davis says bold and assertive. Good. That's nice. Those are the learners we have. They are very lazy. Okay, they are very lazy. Kefri says they are very lazy. They don't care about learning. They know everything apart from anything academic. I think that is very harsh from Kefri and very honest from her. They are digitally literate. Oh, our dogo. That's a good playful. Justin Akoma says they know what they are aiming at. They are digital citizens. Wow. So that is it. We can add these ones. They are self-directed. Sometimes you just give them tasks and they run with them. The part of laziness is what we need to engage them further about. How to use this energy positively. How they use their energy positively by giving them what they love doing. And that's what we actually focused on. They are civically engaged. They are critical thinkers. They are collaborators. They love working together. They are problem solvers. They are financially and economically literate. Even that PP2 child knows the price of a sweet. They know the price of crisps. They are globally aware. They know what's going on. They are civically engaged. So that is the type of learner that we are having. Let us move to now the teacher. So you as a teacher, okay, Kamugisha is saying parents and guardians do wonder how they know things they have not known. What characters attributes should you have as a teacher when you are dealing with this 21st century learner? What do you think you should have? I will allow us to just post what you think. Now we have known who we are dealing with. Catherine said they are very lazy. As a teacher, what do you think you should have as a teacher to handle this kind of a learner? Linda says flexibility. Wonderful. You must be very flexible with them. Nuru, Kobia says self-driven, informed. Okay, up to date. She's still dealing with the. We're dealing with a teacher. As a teacher, what do you think you should have? A teacher should adapt to changes. Should be very patient. Nuru says you should be very patient, innovative, creative, empathetical. Amkoe, that's nice. Onyango says you should be digital, and I want to emphasize that. Don't be so analog when you're dealing with this generation, including how you conduct our classrooms, or else you will lose them. Frederick says accommodative. You need to accommodate them. Seth says to turn less students to active status, raise level of motivation. It will both be easy to the teacher and the students. Transforming Mvula says flexible and aware with day-to-day changes. Good. That's good from Tresfori. Catherine says we have to guide, counsel, motivate them positively, both materially and verbally. Motivation, very key. Chukwama Kennedy says flexibility, creativity, listening ears, adaptability. This is a good one. Justin says we must be open-minded to negotiate the teaching with learners, very open-minded. Let us not use the cane too much. Let us not be too serious in the classroom, like our maths teachers those years. Kado says give room for exploration and discovery. Antonio says you have to have a passion and motivate learners according to their needs, interests, and preferences. Wow. So I think we... So you need to value input and contribution of families, have in-depth content and pedagogical knowledge. You must have deep knowledge of competence-based learning outcomes and supporting resources. Rukia, next slide. You must stimulate the learner. You must be someone who can stimulate them to reflect on prior content knowledge, link new concepts to familiar concepts, evaluate and modify instructional resources. You must be ahead of the learner in terms of understanding resources and modification. You must have additional resources and technologies. Good. I think that is it about understanding the current learner and the assessment. We may not have a lot of time to go into the practical bits of it, but what I want to conclude here by saying is this, that generally we need to do well-breast so that we help our learners do more than just theory in our classes, involve them more and engage them more so that they can learn more. Thank you so much, Rukia. Let me hand it back to you.
Thank you so much, Tiberius. Jen, I don't know, do we have time for this presentation? Should we maybe do a small energizer? Please advise.
Yes, so we can do a small energizer. Yes, we have, at the moment, it is 14 minutes to 8. But thank you so much, Tiberius, for that interactive and very informative session. Mm, yeah. Oh, Rukia, what do you think?
Okay, so if I have time, I just want again to also appreciate Tiberius. That was very interactive. And I didn't even notice it ending. I wanted it to go on. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jen. So this will be a very brief session. And we are linking it also to the policies that Tiberius talked about. Since we talked policies, safeguarding is also very much about policies. But in this session, we are going to discuss what safeguarding is and principles of safeguarding, discuss maybe safeguarding in different Kenyan contexts, and also preview into LPAC's safeguarding policy. But before that, let us check in. Probably in the chat, you can share how you feel at the moment. Just write in the chat how you feel at the moment. Which particular phase describes how you're feeling currently. Jen, you can maybe check for me. I am not able to access the chat easily.
So we have Kobia. I'm not getting you, please. I think she wasn't getting you. Are you now able to hear us, Kobia? Okay. So we have awesome. We have Lana, who says she's excited. We have Justin, excited to learn more. Mariam is super excited. We have Baibi, also very excited. We have Mvula. We have Khadija, who is tired. Mercy, tired. I think it's a mixed feeling group. We have Antonio, who is really happy today. We have Mercy, who is excited. I don't know if I have missed anyone. Let me go back.
Okay, thank you so much, Jen. I hope by the end of this session, you will be feeling better. And at least once you're aware of how you feel, then it is possible for you to know what action you need to take. Thank you for sharing. Kobia, I hope eventually you'll get to hear me. If it persists, probably you can exit and come back. Thank you. What is safeguarding according to you? Please type in the chat. When you hear of the word safeguarding, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind when you hear safeguarding?
We have Constance, who is saying protecting Mvula, protection from harmful, taking care of something, that is from Geoffrey.
Thank you.
Mariam, keeping. Vitlana says feeling safe everywhere. Antonin says protection. Davis, creating a conducive atmosphere. Irene, protect, to regulate, to put checks and control. We have Antonio, who saying being safe. Damaris, taking care of. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So it's actually what you've said, and in a broad sense, we can say preventing harm to people, and there are people who also extend it to the environment. I really want to capture this context from the Kenyan Constitution, because it really is a legal document for us. So in the Kenyan Constitution, Article 53 actually recognizes the right of all children to be protected from abuse, neglect, harmful cultural practices, and all forms of violence. So when we talk of safeguarding, also it means protecting like a child who is defined as anyone who is below the age of 18 or an adult who is also vulnerable. And maybe as we move, you can share a bit about who you think are vulnerable adults in your thinking. You can place it in the chat or just think about it. And if you have a piece of paper where you are, you can write it down to you who's a vulnerable adult and the child also among the people that you're supposed to safeguard. So safeguarding, there are a number of principles that govern safeguarding. And I want to maybe in the chat, if my figure is clear, I want you to match the figure on the left and the phrases on the right. Which one relates to which? For example, in the figure, number 1 is saying empowerment. So empowerment supports vulnerable people to make their own informed decisions. So where would you place number 1? It matches with which number on the left, on the right. Match the phrases with the principles. So the principles are empowerment, prevention, proportionality, protection, partnership, and accountability. So which one relates to which? Maybe Jenny can check in the chat if there's anything.
I think Irene is matching 1 and 4, if I'm not wrong.
Responsible to recognize, record, respond, and report.
Yeah, we also have others who are saying safeguarding. We have safeguarding. So safeguarding means also assuring continuity of something. Then we have catering. A vulnerable adult is someone who is able differently, someone of an age that is not conducive for working a senior citizen. Then Constance matches 2 and 3.
2 and 3, prevention and stopping danger before it happens, supporting and escalation. Thank you. Any other matches?
Yes, there's one that is saying 4. I'm not sure which one. I think 1 and 4, if I'm not wrong. That is from Mariam. But you also have Justin, who is saying 6 and 5.
Accountability and dealing with safeguarding issue in an appropriate way. Not quite.
Yes, but we also have another comment from Jackson. A sense of being responsible to someone's safety.
So accountability, what has been shared right now would match very well with proportionality. Dealing with safeguarding issue in an appropriate way. So proportionality would mean responding in the least intrusive manner as appropriate to the task. And probably I just also want to ask, for example, an issue of you're protecting learners in your classroom and a learner is sleeping in your classroom. Would you maybe take that to be a learner who is abused if it's the first time that they're sleeping? Yes or no? If a learner is sleeping in the classroom, maybe for the first time, and then you feel that is maybe a safeguarding issue that needs to be looked into. So you feel like maybe they were deprived or they are made to sleep late at home, so it's a safeguarding issue. So it's obviously maybe, and now decide maybe to escalate it to the area chief. But that would actually go against the principle of proportionality. So that's what we mean when we talk of proportionality. Like dealing with an issue, of course, we've said in the least intrusive manner, but again, also as appropriate and commensurate to the issue. So there are issues that are not so huge, they can be dealt with at a lower level, and there are some that can be escalated at a higher level.
We have Catherine who has said yes, and the reason could be he might be sick or hungry. One.
That is actually a good observation. But if maybe it's not something that happens every other time, how would that be escalated? Probably, maybe food for thought. Any other comment, or should I move?
We have Monica who says 1 and 1, and then we have Mercy 3 and 5.
Empowerment, awareness creation, 3 and 5, proportionality, dealing with a safeguarding issue in an appropriate way. Protection, maybe can 4 and 2 go together? Protection and informed consent. So take a shot of this, and probably we can continue this conversation in the chats. Please take a screenshot if you're using your phone, or take a picture if you're using your laptop. So I'll move to the next slide. Yes, okay. There's something, Jen?
We have Monica who was saying 6 and 2. And then we also have Catherine who has said you wake him up and teach him later privately to know the reason.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That is what kind of safeguarding? It's actually, I think, also a safeguarding measure. Is it responsive? You're going to learn that as we move. Thank you so much.
Yes, Mvula was agreeing to, yes, Alana might be sick.
Alana might be sick. So let's move to the next. So I would like also, again, for you to type in the chat, from which types of abuse are you as a teacher supposed to protect vulnerable population? This is your learners, and your learners could be younger than 18, or they could be adults if you are a teacher of adult learners, but an adult who is vulnerable. Which are the different types of abuse that we are supposed to protect the vulnerable population?
Sorry, I was unmuted, but people are responding. Thank you for the different views you're giving. We have Irene who says empowerments create consent and awareness. Creates consent awareness. So the different types of abuses we can have from constant sexual abuse. Then we have Jane who says all types of abuse. Then you have Safa who says bullying. Stephen has physical abuse and verbal abuse. Mercy says sexual, physical, emotional, especially from home. Seth says bullying and parent-child neglect. Then you have Mariam who says harassment, oral violence, mockery. Yes.
Thank you so much for your feedback.
There's more. Do I?
Maybe 2 more.
Okay, thank you. So we have Obi who says learners or childs, we have emotional and physical abuse. Then we have adults, means sexual, emotional, verbal, and financial abuse. Then Mvula says avoid harsh language which identifies gender. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now that we know the types of abuse that we are supposed to protect our learners from, which is actually what you've all mentioned, here are some signs of child abuse. So we have neglect, and part of it would be a failure to meet basic needs. And as Catherine said, probably the child was sick, or maybe they were hungry or something. So following up would be good in order to know what's happening with them. We have the physical abuse, and you will see things like unexplained wounds or burns in a student, or even a vulnerable adult. And of course, why is this important in the teaching context is because they will not be able to learn if they are going through an abuse. Sexual abuse, unexplained pain, swelling on the lips, at least those you can see as a teacher, mouth. And for younger kids, even some usually play sexual games on their own with other children and all that. So, of course, when you see these things and they are concerning, then maybe you have a follow-up mechanism, and that's why it's good to have safeguarding policies and maybe familiarize ourselves with what the Kenyan Constitution says in relation to the Children's Act, not the relevant offices such as the social services offices. Probably in school, we have the guidance and counseling section and all that. So what are some of signs of abuse in adults? These are here are child abuse signs. Maybe there are some that you would see in adults, but which others can you say, maybe one or two, that these are signs of abuse in adults? You can place in the chat, or maybe one person can unmute and tell us something. I would really love to hear your voices also. Maybe in a short, like 1 minute or 30 seconds, tell us something about a sign you can say this is a sign of abuse in adults. Anything in the chat? Okay, if you think of something, please feel free to place it in the chat, or even maybe.
Hello.
Hello, yes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
In adults, maybe my own opinion is that this one I've seen it happening. So you get that this person is mostly quiet all of a sudden, and then something small that happens to this person lashes out. So that one could be a sign of emotional abuse.
Thank you so much, Regan, for that. So let's keep on thinking of those signs so that we are able to identify some of these signs in order to escalate and probably come up with ways we can prevent some of these things from happening. Of course, we have to also know what's within our control, know what we can control, what we can prevent, and what we need to maybe respond to. So I know when it comes to safeguarding and the different things and abuse, have you ever seen a situation whereby we used to have that sometimes when someone, maybe a man and a wife, are fighting, and it's reported, you're told, this is a marital issue, we don't want to get involved. But in the course of that, maybe someone is affected. Maybe when it's a child and they are being abused, and maybe the person abusing them is a family member, and they're told we are going to deal with this from our traditional ways. So the child continues suffering. So how do the different Kenyan or African cultures at large affect safeguarding? And is it important to have these cultures in mind when it comes to safeguarding? Anyone who wants to respond to that can unmute and just say something briefly.
Hello?
Hello, yes.
Trace for speaking from Tanzania.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding the question that how do the African cultures affect the self-guard? Exactly, they are affecting because you find that the traditional ways of learning kids can exactly differ from the learning context. In this one, I can comment that you'll find that the traditional, the families there have their own ways, for instance, of believing. So you'll find that when it comes to the learning context, you have your ways that guide you on how to go with the learners, avoiding all the inconvenience issues to happen. But we find that certain family says that it's not our ways to go, it is to your school. So we find that the learner is coming from home with that mind that I should not behave in that way as the school rules maybe, or school regulation says. So now I have to behave as my family or my father and mother tell me. So to me, my opinion here is they are affecting according that they are not related to the ways how the learning centers or learning contexts are the ways has to be.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Tresfori. And actually, that really makes a lot of sense because even maybe when we look at something like the girl child circumcision, which nowadays we call FGM, female genital mutilation. So you find that maybe that is a traditional culture, but it could turn to be an abuse to a child. So probably when we go back to the principles of safeguarding, maybe there's something you can do through sensitization of the community where you're partnering with communities and maybe informing them of the dangers of such things. And as you are saying, they have their culture at home. So you will understand that this learner is coming from a certain background, and probably the policies you have in school can help safeguard them or can help them be grounded when they're in school, and probably empowering them can help look at some of the dangerous cultures. So I'll just go to the next slide.
Can I say something?
Yes, please do.
I wanted to talk about gender, whereby the African culture believes that a male child, a boy child, is not supposed to be crying out, complaining, and saying everything that he's going through. So that affects the boys. They don't say what they go through. So they just die from inside. Again, for adult students, for example, those who are married or at age of being married, the culture respects those people who are married. So if a lady is not married, they take as if it's immoral or something else. So they force themselves to be in a marriage that is abusive to them. So that the society can accept them and respect them that they're married, but in real sense they're suffering in those marriages. So there are so many things that the culture is hindering, safeguarding the learners or the whatever in the society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine, for your submission. And I'm just asking myself, how can we now, being cognizant of these cultures, help in safeguarding people? Because if someone is coming from an abusive marriage, maybe he's your student, and they are vulnerable because probably they are going through a mental issue. Maybe their mental health is affected and now they're vulnerable. How do we safeguard them? And that, again, I'll still go back to the principles of safeguarding and ask myself which particular principle might really work in helping this particular person. Is it empowerment? Is it, which one is it? Okay. So anytime we look at these safeguarding issues, let's go back to the principles and see which one can I use to help this person. What do I have in place insofar as my classroom context is concerned and the culture surrounding my classroom. Okay, so now let's look at LPAC safeguarding policy. And when we started, when people were joining, I heard Jen talking about telling someone to maybe rename themselves so that we can get to know who they are. We can identify them in a respectful way by calling them by their names. See, that's another kind of safeguarding because it also helps us know who we are talking to and who we are dealing with in a way, respecting them and also protecting the other participants who are in the room. We also have the waiting rooms whereby as we let people in, we know who is coming in. So in a way, we are also safeguarding. So, and also we've had a tradition of signing consent forms. If, for example, you check, even when we call for newsletter articles, we tell you if you're taking a photo of a learner, you can take it from the back because of protecting them, because we don't want to expose them to social media and all that. And especially if we don't have consent, and even when we have consent, we really have to wait. We really need to have the face of the learner being shown in the things we deal with. And why this is important also is because in the process of our work together, at times we will give you assignments or we'll want you to go interact with some of these British Council resources that are online. So as you do that, it's important for you to also have policies that will help safeguard your learners while they are online and all that. So insofar as preventive measures of safeguarding are concerned, I think as LPAC, we've been doing a lot. And when it comes to the responsive part, we've really not had issues that have been brought to our attention or have happened, but we are confident because we have the Constitution of Kenya. We looked at the article that talks about protecting children. And eventually we will also share a policy that we will have our members sign so that they are bound by the policies that we have. They are aware so that it helps us in regulating our engagement insofar as taking care of other people's rights and protecting the minors and vulnerable is concerned. So, which considerations would you recommend that LPAC puts in its safeguarding policy? Kindly type in the chat. And even if you're not a member of LPAC, maybe you're from Tanzania, you're from Sudan, you're from Egypt, you're from Nigeria, you're from any other part of Africa, you're from Uganda, which considerations would you recommend that your teacher association or your school or your classroom considers when doing their safeguarding policy?
Rukia, meanwhile, as we for the comment, we have heard Jinyambu talk about the question you asked earlier, and the answer was avoid direct eye contact with teacher and peers. Maybe that shows that there's a form of abuse.
Okay.
Then you have Stephen who says others have early marriages. Then we have Antonio who says, I am going to comment based on my own situation where girls always quit school because of early marriages. This is an abuse. Then we welcome Justin from Gabon. Thank you so much for joining us in this session. So the others who have now answered, we have to the question that you've just asked. Mvula says a government should set rules according to cultural background. Then Bernard says, this is also a Child Protection Act, which I think ELPA can consider. Besides interacting with education sector, disaster policy 2018.
Thank you so much. And I think that is very important because in disaster areas, a lot happens. A lot happens there. There's a lot of appeals and all that. So thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. Kindly also, you can place that in our chat. And if you have a link to it, please share in the WhatsApp. Okay, so let's this will continue being a food for thought and continue discussion in our WhatsApp group. And these are some useful links. I have the Constitution of Kenya that gives the article that talks about children protection. Then there's also the British Council that has a safeguarding course that is an online course that you can take. And also they have samples of how to report an incident and the safeguarding policy of the British Council. We can share these links in the chat, but also we will share this presentation as well as the recording. You can get this and also on your own, look at them. These are some of the references that I used. And our next webinar, Jen.
Sorry, so our next webinar will be on the 28th of August, same time, which is going to be 7 p.m. Then we have the theme will be adaptation of assessment tasks to suit the needs of learner. So thank you. Yes. Any questions? Anyone with any question? You can also put it at the chat. Let's appreciate here with clapping. We can clap. Rukia, that was quite
Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the effort put, and also for Tiberius. The effort put in preparing this. I bet we have all learned something, and we have so many things to ponder. Maybe we can, yes, I can see people saying thank you. Jackson says thank you. Arthur says good job, Rukia, Jane, Chair, and Tiberius. So good. Then we have Dotia says thank you. Kalana, I hope I'm saying that right. Thanks for this.